Hello YouTube, my name is Steve Guthrie, or Steve Guthrie Jr. Normally I would go ahead and introduce myself as Heretic or World-Renowned Heretic. However, for this video, because I'm doing a little special segment here at the beginning, just giving my name straight out, before I go ahead with this deck profile, would like to just wish nothing but the very best to a buddy of mine, Nicholas Bailey, who was recently hospitalized. I wish him a full and speedy recovery with what he's going through. All the best to Nick, his family, his friends, and all of us from the Pokemon community, because Nick, we all support you, and I guess I really hope you see this, but in any case, we're all pulling for you. You got this, man. You can do it. For those of you who wish to support Nick, which we're really asking for as much support as we can all get, I will try to post a link momentarily after this video is uploaded, so that for any possible donations or any possible assistance that anyone may be able to give. None of this goes to me. This is all so that Nick will be able to get better as quickly and as well as possible. We wish you the best, dude. Pokemon community is not the same without you, and we hope to have you back soon. Okay. As promised, I am going to go ahead and give you guys a deck profile. This is Primal Groudon. We have taken a look here on my channel already, or I should say I have tested out and posted deck lists for the other 3 Mega Evolutions in Primal Clash. So I think it is about time we get to Primal Groudon. As you guys may be able to tell, there are a few proxies in here. I do not own Groudons, so I had to print off proxies, and my printer is a little low on ink. You guys may or may not have noticed that in my previous videos with the Primal Clash deck profiles. Anyway, I guess just test before you invest. So, we're going to start out with a 4/4 line of Primal Groudon. Fortunately, the first run on my printer, I was able to get one copy of each that didn't look at least terrible, but they are indeed proxies. These are, at least. So, Primal Groudon, 240 HP, just like Mega Aggron and Primal Kyogre, and for 3 fighting and 1 colorless, he does Gaia Volcano, which does 100 damage, and then if there's a Stadium card in play, you discard that Stadium card and do 200 instead of 100, so the damage is basically doubled. So it's like a bigger version of Donphan's Wreck attack, the big second attack it has that you use to kill EXs in one shot, and then usually get revenge killed. However, this guy's got a lot more HP than Donphan. And he also has a nifty Omega Barrier for an ancient trait, which prevents him from being Lysandered, hammered, whatever, you know, like they're not... Your opponent's trainer cards, with the exceptions of Pokemon tools and Stadium cards, do not apply to this guy. So, go ahead and just stack him up with, you know, pretty much whatever you want. Energy-wise, I mean, you could use Rainbow Energies, I guess, if you really wanted to, although there's no point. Strong Energies can definitely sit there and then boost the power of his attack even more, as if 200 really wasn't enough. I mean, you can make it, you know, a pair of Strong Energies and you're hitting the 240 and you're one-shotting everything. I mean, except for Wailord, but that's another subject, at least as of right now. You want to max out just being able to get these guys out, so I just like to 4/4 for consistency. You definitely probably don't need 4 copies of each. I just kind of like it. And we run 3 Landorus, the non-EX version. And this is really the only form of energy acceleration that fighting types have without having to go to an additional type, like going to electric and using Mega Manectric. Since fighting decks also rely on strong energy, which can only be attached to fighting types, I tend to like to keep it pretty much down to fighting types in general, so that I'm not limited quite so much on what I can use my energy and where I can use it, or how I can use it. So for one fighting, he does Shout of Power, which does 20 damage and attaches a basic energy, so in this case a basic fighting energy from the discard pile to any one of my bench Pokemon. So, really just kind of an accelerator is what you use him for. 120 HP is 10 below the maximum for a non-EX basic. One retreat, it's pretty simple. Water weakness is different from the grass weakness that Groudon holds. So there's a little bit of versatility. And if you really need to, you can use Sky Lariat for 2 fighting and a colorless. Does 90 damage. Very reminiscent of Terrakions' Land Crush attack. Just with a different name. You don't see, I mean, I guess, you know, how good this card is really just depends on a lot of things, but I feel like if Yveltal, if Baby Yveltal can work, then so can this. It's just 10 less damage. It's a different deck, obviously, and we're working at it. I mean, it's ultimately the same goal, but we're working at a different angle here. But I still feel like that with the proper support, this can work just fine as an accelerator. And then we also have 3 Hawluchas. This guy just really to finish off Pokemon that have been hit heavily or that maybe have been battered a bit by Landorus. Something that, you know, also a great way to just lay down some heavy damage, force an awkward prize trade, and potentially 2-shot a big EX Pokemon. Strong energy, and you know, just by itself actually brings this thing up to 80 damage. There are other ways like Fighting Stadium that you can use to jack the damage up even higher, Muscle Band, etc. We don't commit necessarily to all of those things in this deck just because some of the other options we get are rather appealing. So still, regardless, 60 or 80 damage for 1 fighting energy is pretty darn good, not really something to scoff at. And he's also a free retreater and has a fighting resistance, so if you do go up against another fighting based deck like Landorus EX or Donphan, you can just kind of sit him up in the active. He's only worth 1 prize, and he's going to take 20 less damage from those fighting types, which is pretty good. That does it for our Pokemon. Supporter lineup: 4 Sycamore and 4 N. None of you guys should be surprised by this at this point. The only thing I really don't do for the 4 N is Lugia decks because I don't like 4 Ns in Lugia. I've explained that already. However, our entire lineup of Pokemon in this deck is fighting types, including the evolutions. It's 14 fighting type Pokemon, no non-fighting, so we have 4 Karinas at our disposal. Search supporters are basically just consistency in a bottle, and that's what Karina gives us. Searching out an item card, which could be a supporter if you search out a Versus Seeker or a computer search, and just whatever item card you need. You can search energy with Professor's Letter, just whatever you want. You can grab a Spirit Link and a Mega or a Primal Groudon. I mean, just anything. And being able to grab the Pokemon that best fits your situation as well. So obviously just a dual threat supporter right there. Searches out 2 cards you need right then and there and can set you up, especially dominant early game, but can also be useful at, you know, mid to late game. Really no downside to that. And then 2 Lysanders, because you are going to take some time, let's face it. You're going to take some time with Groudon sitting on the bench, and you're setting him up using Landorus and Hawlucha, you know, like Hawlucha to kind of fend off and do some early damage if necessary. Landorus just to put all that energy on the board. And so you're going to have turns to kind of set up and draw your cards, and hopefully when you set that all up, you can set up a Lysander in hand to use as your supporter for the turn on the turn that you finally promote Primal Groudon. Of course, an opposing N can screw that all up, but nonetheless, I mean, I don't think there's any deck you run fewer than 2 Lysanders in these days. So going on, Primal Groudon's attack relies on having a Stadium card in play to deal that extra damage, and in my opinion, the choice here is going to be Silent Lab. Now, I know I took a lot of heat for doing this in the what's now been dubbed the Scrub version of Gardevoir, as opposed to Fairy Garden, which was a huge mistake. However, in this case, I believe Silent Lab is in my opinion, better than Fighting Stadium in this particular deck, since we already have strong energy to boost our damage output. You could definitely make it a split and try to run, you know, Fighting Stadium and Silent Lab. You can run multiple Stadium cards in a deck like this, especially when you are knocking them out of play with Groudon's attack. Personally, I still really like Silent Lab, seeing as to how you can take away stuff like Red Signal from Genesect, which really is the kryptonite or Achilles heel of Primal Groudon, with that weakness to grass, and already being invulnerable to cards like Lysander and Pokemon Catcher, really just taking away the ability for it to be hit with something like Red Signal just makes it that much more threatening throughout the game. And then for our item cards, we're going to go ahead with 3 Versus Seekers. You could probably cut this to 2, but given that we are running Battle Compressors to help get energy in the discard pile for Landorus to accelerate, it doesn't hurt, I don't think, to have the 3rd copy. And 3 switches as well. Landorus and Hawlucha can jump back to the bench pretty easily at 0 and 1 retreat costs, but Groudon is not the same, and since we do run 4 copies of him and only 3 of each of the other 2, we are going to open with Groudon at times, and we don't want to open with Groudon, so it's good to be able to get him out of the active slot. It's pretty simple. 2 energy switch, and this is a card that will just go ahead and let us move our energy, basically, so you can attack with Groudon 1 turn sooner. You can energy switch off of a Landorus, a Hawlucha, before you play the switch, you know, in the case of Landorus, just be able to get that attack 1 turn sooner than your opponent might be anticipating, and sometimes catch them off guard. We also have 2 Battle Compressors. Landorus accelerates energy from the discard, Versus Seeker retrieves supporters from the discard. We might as well, you know, just go ahead and take advantage of that as well. You know, just drop your basic fighting energies, your supporters, and anything else you might feel you don't need for the matchup as well, for whatever given matchup you're playing, right to the discard pile, and, you know, I guess, yeah, just kind of take advantage of that as well. And then we're going to play 1 Professor's Letter, again, Karina target, and basically lets us Karina for basic fighting energies. 1 Escape Rope to accommodate our 3 switches, just for a little bit of variety and to screw up certain decks. Again, can kind of mess up Virizion Genesect a little bit in the beginning, force him to have a switch, can force something else out. Maybe your opponent brought up a non-EX late game to force a 7 prize game, but you know, you can send it back to the bench and try to force him to bring up an EX or something. Take advantage of that. And 1 Computer Search, just because it gets everything. Rounding out the items, we have 4 Groudon Spirit Links. Yes, 2 of those are Gengar Spirit Links. Sue me. I don't have 4 Groudon Spirit Links. And then 4 Strong Energies, because you'd be foolish not to play them, I guess, in this deck. I mean, it's all fighting, so you can put them anywhere. And then finally, 7 Basic Fighting, just to kind of round things out. Accelerate with Landorus, you know, energy switch and all that. One of the big cards in the format that you may notice I'm not running in here is Ultra Ball. And, I mean, the reason, I guess, is pretty simple. Karina searches fighting types. All 14 cards in my Pokemon section are fighting type Pokemon. Yes, the Blockade Exeggutor would be a thorn in my side, I suppose, but if I run into that, they're only dealing 10 damage or 20 to Groudon per turn. I got plenty of time to draw cards, and, you know, if I don't hit, you know, like, I can't play a supporter then, so obviously that's going to slow this thing down, but at that point, I could still play Battle Compressor to dump energies, and, you know, unless I draw completely nothing, chances are I can still power something up and just start tearing through them. At least I'd like to think so. That's pretty much the entire deck for right now. Again, you can run Fighting Stadium. You could actually eclipse the count of 4 stadiums by running 2 different stadium cards. I know people have kicked that idea around. I just kind of like to keep it straight up for consistency, but I could definitely see the argument for it. But that's my Primal Groudon list for right now. Bound to change after some playtesting continues, but for now, this is what I got for you, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Cheers.